and live from London and Brussels, it's ZN Live. And today, 10 days or 12 days before the EU Influencer event, I'm very excited to have a guest with deep experience, over 30 years of experience in sustainability and communication. He's been the co-founder of the Respect Agency, as well as the leader in the EU Influencer category for energy. So very happy to have you here, Kaj. And I want to ask you one question. We can hear a bit of noise on your desk, so I think the mic is close to the desk.
I see. Okay.
No problem. I think it's fine now. It's just when you're moving something. But as I said, very good to have you. As we have the EU Influencer event coming up on the 12th of September, what has been the impact of digital communication, your work, and the EU influencer recognition in general in achieving some kind of results?
Well, let me start to reflect based on our daily life, and I see the last half year about the climate crisis. Of course, have made things into more problem maybe. And at the same time, we also see some sort of a solution, but it takes time to change. And for me, as a communicator, and also I based all my work based on science and innovation, and also communication as a tool to reach out to different target groups. And I can see since the award the last year, I have been recognized on my Twitter and other social media tools that I use, and but also after COVID, it has been some expansion of social events that I have been invited to, which is mostly based on the recognition of the award. So I think both from a digital perspective, I think my voice have reached out to a broader group of people than I have, and also that I have been invited to specific groups mostly in the energy sector that have been starting to ask questions. And based on my experience, I've been working sort of 25, 30, 35 years in this field. So I easily can reflect. And that's also one of the main communication from me is that every day I put up at least 3 tweets on X and also in based on things that I know and have experience from, and people who would like to have some business intelligence, they should follow me, because it's a lot of work to promote knowledge and science-based knowledge to a wider public. And particularly when you are in my age, and also get worried for the generation to come if they don't have the experience and I would like to see that they don't do the same mistake I did when I had been active. So I'm trying also to reach out to younger publics. That's why I'm also very much into new digital tools, everything from sort of the social media mainstreams, and also use tools like crowdsourcing as a method for in my communication thinking. And as I am a change maker, I remember the first time I start to think about communication was when I had to go to my mom and dad and ask, can I borrow the telephone to call a friend? And then I going through from that time through internet digitalization and up to today, and of course a lot of experience, but you need to be aware about things around you and try to understand different type of perspective, everything from politics to business.
Yeah, I think you make some very interesting points. You have over 30 years experience, so obviously you worked in an environment without social media channels, and my question is, how did you make the switch from traditional tools, as you said, the phone, the fax, email, to social channels. And how did you approach this? How do you keep that kind of innovative mindset? Um, how important do you think it is in order to get your message and other communicators' message out?
Yeah, if you're a communicator, you do understand that you need to understand the different types of tools to communicate with, and over time seeing change, and that's why but it's not either then or sort of to have one sector in the mindset. You need to understand how digital solution also have a life in social life. So you have to combine different types of tools and always remember that it's people that I'm working with. And so you have to be engaged in certain levels. And of course, since internet came and we had opportunity to communicate through different types of channels on the internet, I could reduce my climate impact, not to travel so much, but I have traveled a lot in my life, and my network has been built on a lot of travel. So, but today I don't need to travel so much because I have already my social network, and of course I really like to meet friends and have a social contact with people. But um, you, as a communicator, as I said, you need to have understanding of the different types of communication tools around you, and it changes over time.
Yeah, we have Eileen and Gaia saying hi. So hi, thank you for the shout out. I want to come back to you on that point you just made about travel. I mean, in sustainability and energy, the message normally is about being more sustainable, finding ways to do that. Do you think it's a sector in which people are going to stop conferences or at least reduce them dramatically? Because it feels a little bit contradictory to have a lot of conferences where people keep traveling, especially by plane, to go to different places. How much of it has now moved to remote? And do you think that trend will continue? Because there's a big trend of back to meetings, back to conferences now. And I'm curious, in the space of sustainability, has that trend been the same, or are people actually changing the way they engage?
Well, I think it has been a change also when you reflect on COVID, and I can see here in UK, people are working more remote in the office, and so that the working life has changed. That means also different types of all people have to change their lifestyle. And I think we need to reduce the number of travel we all we have done before. And even if I'm also a believer of that, we will see more solution on traveling with train. We will also see new type of planes developed with other type of fuels. So it's not going to be a sort of it will be a mix of interaction, but it will reduce the numbers of flights. That I think we need to do that in the short term, and then we'll see what because it's a complex system that we live in, and it's so many small pieces that are interact with each other, and but you see when you think that's a lot of facts or experience around you, but we have digital solutions to crowdsource that we didn't have before. That means, but you have to know how to handle it. You need to know how to use it. Complex issues, and that is related to both business and particularly politicians. I say that to be a politician for the future need to have another type of skills that we have today, and let's come back to that question a little bit later.
Yeah, I think I guess the question is, how do people and politicians become more innovative about the way they approach problems? You talked about planes and trains, and I just want to mention John Worth, another EU influencer who launched a campaign to kind of improve the connectivity of Europe with the rail system. He actually launched it from Brussels earlier this week. And he'll be he's going to give a shout out for the EU influencer event. But I think I want to go back to the bigger question of the climate crisis. We know that we're facing a huge crisis, and I think this summer we've seen events that were unprecedented. But we hear this every year. It's unprecedented. Things are really getting bad. But are we seeing change in the political class? Do you think that the elections coming up in the EU are going to start putting real solutions on the table? Because it feels like everybody says they want to be sustainable, but yet things don't seem to be really changing on the ground. So how are we moving in the right direction? Or do you think that this is all kind of cosmetic? And unless there's a massive change, we're still heading in a very scary direction.
Well, let me say that I don't think we have the right politician in place today. But the biggest problem, and connected to innovation, I think the most important thing is to have innovation campaigning in the political parties, because that the political parties who are the ones who elect people to be representative in all these decision-making positions. And you have seen so many examples of that lack of skills and lack of experience in the political system, and we need to question that. And this takes time, and we don't have time. So I'm a little bit worried, and go back to we've seen a lot of activism in different type of organization. We have Greta Thunberg. We have that generation should be into politics to recruit new politicians who can make things change. And it is a big question mark for politicians. Let me take one of examples to see how problem in the EU in the question of the health and food system. And we talk about the new problem, or the problem has been there. We need phosphorus for nutrition to give us food enough to feed the world. And but on the other side of the coin is that phosphorus and create algae flowering in water. So with one hand, we create some good things for food production, and the other hand, it creates a big problem. And one of the relationship to this is that the environmental committee in the European Parliament, they deal with the environment in question, and the agriculture committee work with the agriculture question, and they don't speak together. So what we need to understand is that the system that we create for planetary boundaries is not there in place. So politicians in the parliament, in the committees, they don't have that system thinking in place. And that will also reflect on the way the politicians put up governance structures and go to actions. So I have a lot of question mark about if the politician really can handle the crisis.
So what would you like to see politicians do in terms of innovation? What do you mean by innovation, and what do you think they need to be doing? I mean, do they need to be reading books about design thinking and creativity, or do we need people from an entirely different background to join the political fray? And by the way, one thing I noticed, you mentioned politicians and how the new generation should join the political class. I think there are a lot of young people who are disengaged with politics because they don't really see how they can make an impact on that. And so I think there's a wider structural issue. But what do you think politicians need to bring to the table? How do they become innovative? And what is your advice to young people if they want to make a difference?
Well, this is going back to what I said. It's a problem for the political parties because democracy is built on the political parties' role in the decision-making process. And it has been a lack of recruitment from the young generation on many, many years. And that's why other interests had taken part in politics, like media moguls, and we get some populists like Trump and Bolsonaro in Brazil, and Boris Johnson in UK. And uh, but I'm pleased to see that it's so many young people engaged, but they are not in going into politics and political parties to take to show their voice there because they are needed there, and they need to in a transformation of a society. If you don't have the right politician in place, it's going to be messy, and I think we still have a long way to go. And but the problem is within the political parties, and they need to recruit people in another way than they do today. They work very traditional, and they need new tools. And that's why I'm saying that the political parties need an innovation process, how to recruit the young generation into politics.
Okay, we have a specific question from Ivan saying, do you think providing free public transportation could be an effective strategy for reducing carbon emission? Is that also the kind of thing that you'd like to see on the political agenda of the election? I mean, practical solutions, or do you think it's still cultural and values first?
Well, I think some countries already have done that, free public transportation. And I am, as a pensionist in London, I have a freedom pass that is free for me on buses, on trains in a sort of greater London area. And I think that works very well. And I think, but you know, a pressure with more people traveling on public transportation, it needs also investment in infrastructure and you know, I think the problem with big cities and the air pollution is really need to be solved, particularly here in London with such a big problem and related to the latest development. We see air pollution as a big issue in London, and the new um, action plan with ULES, which will make change, and but it's not enough to solve the problem. I think we need to reduce the cars in the city, and we need also infrastructure investment for bikes and other type of. It's a mobility issue, and you know when we say the word mobility, it's also system thinking that
Mhm.
you have to involve different types of transportation solution. And of course, public transportation is one way to be put into discussion and see different cities have different problems, but mega cities have a big agenda for this.
Okay. When you meet young people, students who just graduated, who are thinking about what to do for their career in sustainability or communication, what is your advice to them? What do you tell them that they need to think about? What skills and mindset do you tell them that they need?
Well, I think they should demand more or start to ask the question of sustainability and also education in this field, and also have dialogues with science, and to see how they learn from science to transform that language into their life. And I think it's a lack of communication skills in the science society. We don't have so many scientists who can communicate their knowledge. And I have been using Johan Rockström as an example of how I would like to see a scientist communicate system thinking and planetary and boundaries and sustainability. So follow. I did some of my podcast program in Transformers. I had a 1 hour talk with Johan Rockström, and listen to that. I think that's a very good lesson for young people to be more aware about what's happening around us, and also send a signal to politicians to to understand that system thinking and planetarian boundaries, the other planet boundaries, what we need to, how we, our mindset need to be, and how also politicians need to have that mindset. It maybe will be a revolution in the governance structure for politics in parliaments and also within the relationship to political parties.
Okay, so actually that brings us to our recommendations. I think that might be yours, but we'll do it. So roll jingle for recommendations. Yeah. So what is your recommendation? I think you talked about it a little bit in terms of book, podcasts, reading for our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, but don't forget that social interaction is also important. And it's a question that you need to be social aware about how you transform a society and how activists also have to be involvement of the structure of decision making in business, in politics. So I think we have opportunity to create more knowledge based on experience from many years, and also can look into the coming the short term coming years and also the long term. But social media play an important role, but don't forget it's an interaction with social consciousness and social interaction. The two are the same basket of solution
Okay.
for the generation to come.
And do you have any books or podcast recommendations in addition to Transformers? Because I think that was your recommendation of the week. I just want to check.
Well, I think I have done 47 programs, and all
Okay.
are based on my experience, and it cover everything that I have been involved with. The biggest campaign in Sweden with the Natural Step Foundation set up, where we engage a lot of people, and it was also uh, reached the politicians level, and that was a very successful story, and we created based on science on 4 system conditions, and the educational program on that was very important to succeed also in the communication process. And then it need to have a view of top down thinking but also bottom up. I have been involved in a lot of local social engagement in my hometown in Nacka, south of or east of Stockholm. We created the People's House movement, and 95% of the population, 35,000 people, are engaged, and they celebrate 40 years anniversary this year. And the tools were very communicated related, and building up one of the first TV local stations for many years ago, and use of music and culture and the church, and everything was to build sustainability in the local community. And I did a program with the in the neighborhood of Nairobi with the Slum Code group, and you can listen to that also in the program. But I think trying to, through my Transformers podcast, trying to tell the stories, because this is about storytelling and full of experience, and you learn a lot. And I think I hope that I contribute some part of that through the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for that. So I think that's very interesting, and will give people much more information if they want to dive into the topic. My recommendation for this week is the EU Influence Politico newsletter, which comes out every week. And this week there was a fantastic story about how to get over your ex, and X is of course the new name for Twitter. And so the question was, how was social media changing? And a number of people, including myself, gave some insights. The basic one being, you need to adapt. The future is uncertain. There's a fragmentation happening, and that means you need to recalibrate your approach and look at how Twitter, X, and Mastodon and LinkedIn might all play a role in your communication in the future. It's no longer a single channel, it's multiple channels, and it's a little bit more complicated, but it just requires that innovative spirit of learning that you talked about earlier. So I hope that we have a nice weekend coming up. That's all we have time for, Kaj. But thank you so much for sharing your insights. Looking forward to hearing more about it during the EU influencer event and, of course, online. Have a fantastic weekend. Thank you very much.
Great.
See you
Thank
online.
you. Bye
Bye.
from London. Bye.